Alright. Alright, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. We will be joined by Heidi, who will be presenting on nutrition and cardio-oncology. It's a very niche subject, but it's very important, and this workshop will be recorded and posted on our YouTube page, and I won't take any more of Heidi's time. I'm gonna go ahead and let her present.
Thank you. I'm not sure, do I need to look a certain, like, I know you said the presentation's gonna be up, so.
Yeah,
doesn't matter where I look.
you can look up here or
Okay.
wherever's comfortable.
Wherever I'm looking. Thank you for having me and sharing this time with you. So basically how I structured the presentation is we're going to talk about cardiac information first, and then we'll move into oncology because every case is individualized. So some of the cardiac information I'll present isn't necessarily appropriate for certain individuals who are in a certain phase of their oncology treatment or recovery or wherever the case may be. But the cardiac information is always just good basic foundational nutrition information in the first place. And then we'll get into a little bit more specifics about the oncology piece towards the end. All right, so to get us started, basically what does nutrition have to do with heart disease? So there's a lot of factors that affect our overall, nutrition, high blood pressure, cholesterol, excess weight, which now we have all these GLP drugs out on the market that people are taking, which we don't really know the long-term effects of, so it's a little scary, with being a dietitian and seeing how easily accessible these things are to people. So how is that going to play a role? Diabetes, and of course the factors of diabetes, so lack of physical activity, smoking, if you have family history of it, and of course our age and gender play a role with the diabetes factor. So healthy eating. We can improve our cholesterol and blood pressure just by the things that we eat. We can also reduce the risk of developing chronic disease, helping to manage it, and of course, our weight. That we can affect weight loss or weight maintenance by what we're eating. So these are all factors that we have control over. So what is high blood pressure? So hypertension is a big word, but that just means high blood pressure. So what's happening is that we're making the heart work harder, and when it works harder, it starts to damage the artery walls. And that's where we run into the damage that's being done. So what can make a difference is, of course, why I'm here, what we eat. So eating low sodium, low fat, those are all gonna play have a factor in our heart and trying to protect it as best we can. Of course, incorporating fruits and vegetables, you hear all of that all the time. Dairy, nuts, legumes. So we'll talk about the specific diets that really dive into those food areas. And then of course, watching our weight and being in a healthy weight. Sodium chloride is table salt. That is just a fancy name for it. And it is approximately 40%, table salt is approximately 40% sodium. So it's important to know the measurements. So, a lot of people were used to having a salt and pepper shaker on their table, and now that's not what we really want. Salt is in a lot of our foods already, so we don't want to be adding salt to our food once it's prepared, especially if you're eating something that's processed. So just 1/4 of a teaspoon, it's such a small amount, is already 600 milligrams of sodium. And when we're talking about how much sodium we should consume in a day, depending on all the factors that are playing into your nutritional status, some people are supposed to keep it to 2,000 milligrams a day. So if you look at the bottom there, 1 teaspoon is already 2,400 milligrams of sodium. So just in that one, and teaspoons are really small, you've already consumed all of your salt for the entire day. And that's not including the salt that's already in your food. And as we talk a little bit more about processed foods, you'll see just how much sodium is in the foods that we're eating. Okay, so this is a good choose and avoid. So the pluses and minuses. So we want to it's the joke of my family now. In fact, we just had a party at my house and somebody said, "Where's the salt?" And I was like, "You don't know already? Like, it's up in the cabinet. It's the Epsom salt that I use for baking. Like, that's what you get." So I don't have a salt shaker in my house. And we're talking about the reasons why. So obviously we want to choose fresh fruits and vegetables. Now there is a place for canned goods, for ease and speed of things, but you want to look for the signs that say no added salt. So they're not adding a ton of extra sodium into those, canned or prepackaged items. But you got to read for that. And we'll get to another slide that talks about all the jargon that you see in the stores to try and get you to buy the products that they want. So frozen is also good. So people always say fresh is best, frozen is next. And then canned is third. So those are kind of my suggestions when we're talking about fruits and vegetables. Of course, herbs and spices. So we want to still season our food. We want our food to be flavorful, but salt isn't the answer. So how do we go about seasoning our foods without adding a bunch of extra salt? So again, that's where our herbs and spices come in. Now, you do have to be careful when you're purchasing herbs and different spices because they won't always say the word salt. So my favorite one is lemon pepper. That's a very common seasoning, but if you read the ingredients in lemon pepper, salt is included. So you gotta make sure you're looking at the ingredient lists and reading. We'll get to a label later, so I'll label later. Say that fast 10 times. So I'll leave that for there. But so we want to do spices and different seasonings, but we just want to be cautious of what's in them. Fresh meats, poultry, eggs, those are all great as long as we're preparing them without salt. And then there is a place for nuts and pretzels, even the peanut butter, but we want to be cautious of the salt. So you can buy, peanuts that are unsalted or almonds that are unsalted. And when they're roasted, you're typically getting some salt too. So just looking at those. What we want to avoid, obviously, is all of the canned soups, some of those really salty soup mixes. So I remember back in the day, we used to add them to the IMO, the fake sour cream, right? And that was making a dip. Well, those are full of salt. Processed meats, so ham, bacon, sausages, those are ones that's how they're made. We cure them with salt. So of course they're going to be really high in salt content. I already mentioned salted nuts. Cooked cereals aren't necessarily bad, but when you buy the pre-packaged ones, so the ones that are nice and convenient for us, they typically have salt in them. Versus if you're doing like your own quick oats and you're microwaving them with whatever you want to put in them, that's preferred because then you're avoiding that extra salt that's being put in the packaged little individual packages. Frozen meals have come a distance. Back in my day, my mom used to buy Hungry Man for my dad, and when I finally got into my nutrition classes, I came home one day and I was like, "Mom, are you trying to kill Dad? Like, what the heck?" Like, there is still Hungry Man, I think, still in the markets, but we've come a far way. So not all frozen meals are treated equally. There are some lean cuisines and some healthy choices, but again, it's item specific. So you might be able to find like a chicken dish or a beef dish that's on the lower sodium side, but anytime you get into more of like the enchiladas or sometimes even the pastas, you'll see the sodium and the fat content go up in those specific items. So you always have to turn the package over and look at the ingredient list and really look at the salt and the fat in those, because sometimes we have to be realistic, right? Like, my mom lives alone now and she doesn't cook for herself. And so sometimes these are options that we really need to consider. And a side note, I used to manage the rehab facility and they do the Meals on Wheels. And so my mom doesn't live around here, but there is a Meals on Wheels near her. And that has become a great alternative for her. So she gets them twice a week. They're, fresh food. So it's like a stand-in for the frozen meal. So if you have something like that in your area, it is definitely something worth looking into. Pre-seasoned mixes, you're going to get a lot there. We already talked about the snack items. Salad dressings is another big one. So again, salad dressings are not created equally either. So a lot of people say, oh, I hate oil and vinegar. Is there anything else I can have? Because as we know, the oil and vinegar is the healthiest in the sense that as long as it's a healthy oil, that's going to be the lowest in sodium. Things like ranch, Thousand Island, blue cheese, those are all really high in fat and sodium. So you do have to get creative. I have started to see some new ones coming out that are like avocado oil. Those are great ones. There are some balsamic vinaigrettes that are at least a little more flavorful, but I can't just tell you which one to buy because there's so many different brands. So that's why when we get to the label reading, it's going to be important that you understand what to look for so you can find the one that's best suited for you. And then of course, fast food, it's pretty tough. They have made some advancements, like now you can get lettuce wrapped for like the burgers, or I always say, I used to be a waitress, and so I'd always say, you know, ask, it's your health, you're the one paying for the food. So I always say like no mayonnaise, you know, or mayonnaise on the side, salad dressings on the side. That way you can control how much is in the food. But fast food in general is pretty tough to get anything that's healthy and not high fat and high salt. So when we look at how much we consume, Americans consume a lot of processed high sodium foods. 77% is from processed quick items and restaurants. 12% is just naturally occurring in food. And then the 6% are still those who want to have their salt shaker on their table. And then 5 is when we home cook. So you can see that's the healthiest is when we're preparing it ourselves, but that's not always realistic either. How do we cut cholesterol? So want to talk about saturated fat, the bad fats, the good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. So we want to limit saturated fat. And that's in anything that's animal products. So that's why you have, you know, the butter, beef, all of that. Those raise our bad cholesterol. That's the LDL. And so that's why we limit saturated fat. Then with cholesterol, again, that's in all of our, you know, animal products, but the other bad part is we also create and make our own cholesterol. So just because we might eat really healthy and we avoid a lot of the cholesterol containing foods, you still might have high cholesterol. I am one of them. So I have to be more cautious about my fiber content to make sure that I can keep my cholesterol in check. Because even if I cut out egg yolks and I watch my, you know, red meats and my dairy products, it doesn't matter. My cholesterol still is up there because my body is doing a great job of making cholesterol. So when we're younger, cholesterol is great because that's what we need for brain development. So for babies and toddlers, like we want that cholesterol for the brain development, but obviously as we get older, that cholesterol then just gets deposited, and we'll see a slide in a minute about that. So we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the cholesterol. And then the worst fat is the trans fat, and I call that the fake fat. The reason I call it fake fat is because it is made. We make it. So there's like a cis and a trans bond back in my chemistry classes, and we basically switch them and we make it so that it creates foods that are stable. So you'll find a lot of trans fats in your stable baked goods. So things like croissants and packaged muffins and all those items. And the wording is hydrogenated. So you'll see partially hydrogenated or fully hydrogenated. So anything that has the word hydrogenated is trans fat. And so trans fat is really bad because it increases the cholesterol and it increases LDL and it decreases HDL, which is our good cholesterol. So it's a double whammy in the negative realm. So what do we need to know about cholesterol? It's not a fat, however, we do need to limit. So I had to look up the new recommendations because the yolks used to be a little higher. There's a lot of controversy about egg yolks. Does it raise cholesterol? Does it not? So we still just recommend to limit egg yolks 2 to 3 times per week. So remember, you can do as much of the egg whites as you want, but just watch the yolk because the yolk is where the cholesterol is concentrated. And then what are normal levels? So total cholesterol, you usually, unless your doctor says differently, You want it less than 170 milligrams. And I will tell you my secret. So the way that I keep track of my cholesterol is I donate blood. So when you do blood donations, cholesterol is something that they check, and it's actually in their registry. When I log in, I can do my health screen, and it'll tell me what my cholesterol levels are. So I can keep a pulse on my cholesterol levels and know, like, oh, I haven't been getting enough fiber in my diet, or maybe I've been eating a little too much dairy, so I need to watch it. And then when I donate in another, 2 months, then I'll get another cholesterol reading, and it kind of helps me keep myself in check instead of having to go to the doctor and do all the labs that way. So just a little cheat sheet. HDL is our healthy. So the way I remember healthy cholesterol and bad cholesterol, so H is healthy, L is lousy. So the H in for the healthy cholesterol, you want those numbers to be up. So that's the 40 to 59 milligrams is good. If it's lower than 40, you'll hear your doctor say, oh, your HDL is not high enough. And then the lousy cholesterol is your LDL. You want it to be less than 100, but there's a lot of things that we eat that push those LDL levels up. So that's why we got to be careful. And then they do a ratio of HDL to LDL. The other one we want to watch out for is triglycerides. Triglycerides are directly related to like sugar intake or alcohol intake. So a lot of times people will come on and they say, I swear I don't drink alcohol. Well, you don't have to drink alcohol to have high triglycerides. It's definitely right in there with sugars. So if you are eating a lot of sweets, or you're just somebody who likes a lot of added, like maybe you like cream in your coffee and it's that's lots of sugar in that, then you're gonna get your triglycerides creeping up. We're gonna try to play this little YouTube video, and it does a great job explaining cholesterol, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. I'm not great with technology, so I'm glad that she's here to help me. Yeah. Does that want to play? Hear me? If not, we'll see if there's a picture of it in the next slide.
To your well-being. But what do you really know about it? Let's start with the basics. What exactly is cholesterol? Well, it's a waxy, fat-like substance that's made in your liver and travels throughout your bloodstream. It's a key ingredient that your body needs to make new cells. But too much cholesterol can lead to serious problems, such as heart disease and stroke. Here's why. You see, there are actually two main types of cholesterol, LDL and HDL. LDL, or low-density lipoprotein, is sometimes called bad cholesterol because it can build up inside your arteries, which causes them to narrow, which can lead to heart disease or stroke. That's why you should try to keep your LDL low. Think of it this way. The L in LDL is for lower or lousy. On the other hand, HDL, or high-density lipoprotein, is the good kind of cholesterol. It carries LDL, the bad stuff, away from your arteries and back to your liver, where it's broken down and processed by your body. That's why you want your HDL to be higher. In this case, the H in HDL is for higher or healthy. There's actually a third component known as triglycerides, which plays a role in your cholesterol health. Triglycerides are the most common type of fat in your body, and their job is to store excess fat from your diet. Elevated triglycerides, along with low HDL and high LDL, can also increase your risk for cardiovascular disease, so it's important to keep your triglyceride levels low. For anyone who's had their cholesterol checked, It's only natural to focus on your cholesterol score or the actual numbers. But the numbers don't really tell the whole story about your health. That's why it's important to discuss all of your risk factors with your healthcare provider, including risk factors that you can change, like eating a healthy diet, getting plenty of physical activity, and quitting smoking. Controlling your cholesterol may be easier than you think, but it all starts with getting your cholesterol checked. It's a quick and easy test. So if you're due to have your levels checked, or if you never had them checked, make it a priority. Taking the next step in managing your health is as easy as CCC. Check, change, and control your cholesterol. Get started now by visiting heart.org/cholesterol.
Their pictures were cuter than mine, so I just wanted to share that. So I'm going to date myself, but way back when I did my senior project when I was graduating my college, and I was in a rehab facility, and so I sat with these patients who had had heart attacks or strokes, and after they were exercising on the machines, they would come and sit with me after, and I had like 5 questions, and it was about, their cardiac health. And one of the questions I asked was, do you know what LDL is? Do you know what HDL is? And of course the consensus was no, nobody knew. And here are these things that are really important on keeping them healthy and preventing, further incidences. And that was the piece that was missing, that there was never any nutrition education included in their recovery. And so that's what my whole thesis was about, was the need to provide preventative information to these patients so that they could actually do better and prevent further issues. So here, and my mom used to always say, honey, you forget that your everyday knowledge is things that a lot of people don't know. And so that's why I truly enjoy doing these presentations, because for me, yes, this is information I've had up here forever, but it's important to share it because it doesn't do good if it's in here. It's only good if I can share it with others. So the next one is a picture of exactly what was in that video. That just shows that artery buildup. And so that's why it's really important to keep, an eye on cholesterol and, where you're at, because you don't want it to end up with, I call it sludge, sludge in your arteries, because once it's there, it's there. And that's where when you have cardiac events that they go in and put a stent, and all they're doing is putting it and pushing it against the wall of your arteries, because you don't want to have it break loose, because that's where you end up with the clots. So if it's going up to your brain, that's the stroke. Otherwise, it's a heart attack. So we want to, try and minimize as much of the plaque buildup in our arteries. And the way we do that is trying to keep control on our cholesterol levels. And, it was very disheartening for me when I first discovered that my cholesterol was high, because of course my doctor, it was a call after, she got my results. And so it was the girl in the office, and she said, okay, so you have some choices. We can prescribe you a medication, or you can get a supplement over the counter. Those were my 2 options. And I was like, or I'm going to change my diet, but thank you for that. So of course I went and just started, I choose chia. I'm not a big Benefiber person. So I, quickly found some recipes with chia, found that it's actually easier for me to drink my chia, which takes some time to get adjusted to. It tastes like dirt if you actually have one of them break open. And I would have it in my water bottles, and people are like, what is that in there? And I'm like, oh, it's, I'm just getting some fiber in, So it's, you have to find what works for you. But fruits and vegetables for me, yes, I love them, but that wasn't enough for me. I needed to find another source of fiber that I could do on a regular basis that would really help keep my cholesterol in check. So for me, that's what works. For some people, it's Metamucil. Some do Benefiber. Some just, really hone in on their, salads daily. So it's really whatever works best for you.
Was that enough?
It is.
So it lowered your cholesterol?
Yes. It keeps me in check. And that's with diet too. Like, I don't do a ton of red meat, but I do love my steaks. So, maybe I have maybe 2 or 3 a month where I indulge in some really yummy red meat. and I always cut the fat off. I actually don't like the texture of fat, so I don't, indulge in that. So that helps a little bit. My big weakness is dairy, so I love my cheese. So I'm like, well, I'll just drink some more chia to offset that dairy. All right, next is our oils. So not all oils are created equally, and I really like this slide. Sometimes the colors are a little hard to see, but you'll see I get so many questions about coconut oil. Oh, coconut oil is great. It's so good for you. And, a couple years ago, there was this whole thing about the coconut water and coconut this and coconut that. And I was like, coconut water has the highest amount of saturated fat in it. So what I say is coconut oil is great if you want to put it on your skin. That is what is in fat. That is what is in soap. I did one of my labs in college was making bars of soap. And I remember having to scoop the lard out and put it into the mixture. And I was like, what in the world are we doing? Why am I putting lard in my soap? And they were like, well, that's what you use to take the dirt off of you. The fat actually grabs the dirt. And I was like, ew. But then that made sense to me. That's why you get a lot of coconut oil in your lotions because it it's the moisturizer that we want in our skin. So coconut oil on the outside of us, great. On the inside of us, not so great because of how much saturated fat is in it. That's why then there was the controversy, butter versus margarine. So then a lot of people were like, oh, the margarines, when they finally learned about trans fats, which we know are the worst kind, they were like, well, why am I going to do margarines with trans fat when butter is healthier? At least I know it's real. So now there's an in-between. So you have to watch. Not all margarines have trans fat in them. So I have a couple that I like. Smart Balance is one of them. It does not have, I do not get paid by these places. They're just ones that I've tried. It does not have trans fat in it. It is hard like a butter. My personal favorite is Brummel and Brown Spread. It is yogurt based and it is really nice because it does not rip your bread. It's soft like a margarine and it spreads easily, but it doesn't have the trans fat either.
How do you spell
Brummel, Brummel, and Brown Spread. And right now it's about $4.39 because I bought one last night at the Walmart grocery store. So, and then as you go down the list, you'll hear a lot about the vegetable oils. So yes, there are some side effects to the vegetable oils. That's why, you don't just get vegetable oil. You need to know what you're getting. So the ones that are the healthier ones that we try to stick to is peanut oil. You'll see peanut oil up there. It has not as much saturated fat. The blue is the linoleic acid. And then it has a lot, monounsaturated is the healthiest part of the saturated fat. So the ones that have the larger orange, you'll see olive. That's why olive oil earns its, best here is it has the largest amount of the monounsaturated. So that's why olive oil is the preferred. But olive oil isn't always what you want to use when you're cooking certain things. Like baking, olive oil, it has a very strong flavor and you don't always want your item to have that flavor. So that's where peanut oil can come in. So anyway, and that's why canola oil, there was a lot of controversy about canola oil. So it does have monounsaturated fat, a decent amount. And then of course that's where margarine, you'll see that's the only one that has the trans fat, which is the worst one. That's why we want to avoid all of that. All right, so that's the dirty on oils. So a little bit more about coconut oil. 92% of the fat in coconut oil is saturated, so that's what we saw on the previous slide. And it does contain medium chain triglycerides, which you'll hear MCT. That's how that's referred to. And MCT is good, but not in high. You have to be careful on where it's coming from. So usually conventional types of coconut oil are in candies. The coffee creamers have a lot of coconut oil in them. Movie popcorn, that's why people love movie popcorn, is that really rich, but of course that's really unhealthy for us. And then you do have the cold pressed. So that's I have coconut oil. that I had to, because I do a lot of essential oils, and so I use it as a carrier. Again, it's for the outside of my body, so I can use it with, in fact, it's great to have around if you get something in your eye, like something like the essential oils in your eye, you put the oil and it will help dissipate the content of the essential oils so that it's not burning you. So that's why, and yeah, so that's why I keep coconut oil around. Omega-3 fatty acids, so these are what you hear, you need more. This is what helps us raise our HDL. But the problem is that they're typically found in fish, and not everybody loves fish. So those are the big names for it: Ecosa, pensanoic acid, I have not had to say that in a long time, and docosahexaenoic acid that are referred to as EPA and DHA. So it does suggest that the omega-3 fatty acids, they do prevent or reduce your risk of heart arrhythmias. They do help lower our triglycerides. They decrease clots because they have a clotting factor that helps with that. And it can decrease inflammation. Now, with all that said, I never recommend to anyone going out and just start taking fish oils without talking to your doctor first. There are certain medications that people take that are maybe already blood thinners, and then if you add the fish oils on top of it that are natural blood thinners, you could end up with your blood being too thin. So it's really important that you always ask first before you start something. But the recommendation is 250 to 500 of the DHA and EPA daily, or just eating fish. And usually we say fish is 2 to 3 times a week. All right, next. So again, we've talked a lot about fiber, but this is the specifics of fiber. So 2 types of fiber, soluble and insoluble. So I always forget because fiber to me is just fiber, but that's why I've listed them here. So soluble is what attracts the water. It helps turn to gel during digestion and it slows the digestion. Whereas insoluble, which makes sense to the name, insoluble, it's the bulk. It's the bulky things that don't break down. So that adds the bulk to your stool. It does speed the transit time through the stomach and the intestines. So that's why those are more like your vegetables and the whole grains. Some of them are both. You'll see, you're like, wait, what? I see that in both. So they do have properties of both soluble and insoluble, but that's the main difference. And then psyllium is what's typically found in your fiber supplements like Metamucil or the Benefiber. And then the fiber goals are really hard to get if you are not one that is a salad or vegetable eater every day. So I also looked these up to see what the most current recommendations were. They haven't changed much. They actually came down a little bit for women. So women less than 50 years of age, it used to be 28 grams, now it's 25. And then as you get older, you do get away with less. If that's ever happens, but so then they recommend 22 grams. Men is 31 grams, so men actually have to have more fiber than women. And then once you reach over 50, it's 28 grams. Now, what I will say about fiber, when you add more fiber to your diet, it is imperative that you add more water, or you will be so constipated you will hate me. So that's why my chia, putting it in my water is perfect because it forces me to drink more water, but I'm also getting my fiber at the same time. But I had to play with it because in the beginning, it would give a little GI upset. So I was, I got a little gassier in the beginning when I started it. I couldn't do it every day. So I would do it, maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or I would just do it, Monday and Friday. So that's why I was saying, like, you have to kind of play with it and see what works best for you. Yes.
Is it a powder, or when you say chia, I think of chia seeds.
That is it.
You put the seeds in
Yes.
your water? Oh,
Yes.
interesting.
And then they will swell up, and then they're like the little gelatinous thing, and then I just swallow them.
How
Yeah.
much chia seeds do you drink?
So again, everybody, like I would start with a small amount at first until you get used to it.
Small.
Like when I do something like this, as a 24 ounces, I'll do 1/4 of a cup. But I would say if you're starting, I wouldn't start out with more than like a tablespoon. And I had to add, like, I couldn't do just plain water at first, like, I would add a little bit of like cranberry juice, or I have those, like sugar-free, like the sweet teas or the little packets, and I would add a little bit of something just so there was flavor to kind of hide the dirt part if you get one of those. But hey, come on. Oh, you're fine, of course, join us. So yeah, I did have to play with it.
Can you sprinkle them on cereal or something?
100%. People put them in their oatmeal. There's actually, I've made pudding right on the bag of chia seeds. It'll have a pudding recipe, and I love that too. I'm just lazy, and so I don't take the time to make the pudding. But it is really good too. So yes, people put them in salads. So however you want to get them in you. Usually where I'm at now is I actually have a fourth of a cup in my bag. So that's what I just throw in with my water. But again, I wouldn't start out with more than say a tablespoon at first.
I think we have one question in the online.
In the chat?
Yeah.
Hi, Heidi. I have a question. Can we go back to the omega-3 so the one slide before? Yeah. So my question is that, so the risks of mercury in fish. So I know that, yeah, there are lots of omega-3 in fish. And then, so are there any fish that have like more mercury than the other, or the other way around?
That's a great question. I think there is a slide that I do have that's coming up that has the fish and the types of fish and the mercury. The problem is it's always changing. So my recommendation is you can go online and pull the current, because it always changes if it's farm versus fresh. So normally it's your bottom dwellers are the ones that have the highest mercury. But yeah, there is a slide that will tell you the specifics. I can't remember offhand. I know salmon obviously is one of the better ones. Halibut, I want to say tilapia is one of the higher mercury, but we'll get to it. There is a slide on that.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so I promised you we'd talk about labels. So labels are a little easier to read now. You have to start from the top down. And why I say that is everything below is based on whatever they say the serving size is. Now the serving size is a little more realistic. Before, a lot of the companies were trying to trick people, and they would say, like, for instance, a little bag of chips, and they would say, oh, the serving is 2. Well, no, you're gonna eat the whole bag of chips. But they were doing that so they could divide the numbers and make it look healthier than it was. So always start at the top. Serving size, this one says 1 cup. They're saying servings per container is 2, so that means in that container is 2 cups of whatever the product is. We start with the calories, and we work our way down. So they'll always have total fat first, but remember, we care most about saturated and trans, right? Those are the worst 2 kinds. So that's why those are listed first. They will put monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, you'll see some of those, but these are the ones we want to know about. Because we want to keep that saturated to like 0 to 2. We don't want any saturated fat. And trans, we want 0. We do not want trans in the things that we eat. And then we get to the cholesterol. It's going to tell you how much is in there. When it's a animal product, obviously that's going to be much higher. So the amounts is different based on what your needs are. Sodium, I always say if it's 200 milligrams or less, that is feasible. Anything over that is going to be high in salt. And then for our diabetics, that's where you jump down to the total carbohydrates, and now we break it down into the ones that are fiber and then sugar, and now we even have like the no added sugar. That's the new guidelines. So actually I need to update this label. And then at the very bottom, it's not very helpful because it says based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Well, if you don't follow a 2,000 calorie diet, then all of that information is not very helpful on the purple side where it says the percent daily value. That's what it's telling you is based off of a 2,000 calorie diet. How much is that particular item providing for you? So you'll see, I say saturated fat, like I said, is 0 to 2 grams. Trans fat, we want 0. Cholesterol, less than 10% of the daily value. And then sodium, this says 300. I say 200 because we get a lot of sodium. All right, next. I'm not going to read all of these, but these are food label claims, and I just like to make people aware of what they mean. Some are helpful, some mean nothing. So when we talk about if it says calorie free, 0 calories, it's just telling you it has to have fewer than 5 calories. If it says reduced, whether it's saying reduced calories, reduced fat, reduced whatever, all it means is that it's comparing it to its regular product and it just has less. And again, back in my food chem, we had to compare Cheez-Its, regular Cheez-Its to low-fat Cheez-Its. There was really no difference. It was just the marketing claim to get you to think that you were buying something that was a little healthier, when really the amounts were very marginal of a difference. Low fat has to be less than 3 grams, so that one is helpful. Obviously fat-free, that's helpful too. Go to the next one. So that's where you'll see reduced saturated fat just means it's 25% less than the original, but what if the original was 20 grams? Like, it's still, even if it's 25% less, that's still not healthy. So that's why that claim is hard to decipher. Cholesterol free, that is helpful, right? And we know that there is no cholesterol in it, so less than 2 milligrams. But reduced cholesterol is not very helpful to us. Sodium free, that one's helpful. Low in sodium is a good one, because that's when you're reading like cans, like we were talking about before, then you know that 140 milligrams is, that's a good one. All right, next one. Sorry. Very low sodium, that's a good one. You don't see that a lot. And then the no salt added. So that's what we were talking about on the, let's say, green beans or something. So they're saying that there's no additional salt being added to it, but it doesn't mean that the item was sodium free when it started. So that's why you have to still look at the label to see how much is actually in it. A low sugar, there is no definition for it, so that means nothing to us. No sugar added is helpful, just in the sense that they're not adding additional sugar, but it doesn't mean, again, like for, let's say, jelly or something, you're gonna get the fruit sugar that's already in it. They're just saying they're not adding extra like table sugar to it. All right, so that's the down and dirty on labels. Lifestyle changes. These are 2 very good diets. They are challenging to follow. So the DASH diet is one that is very commonly used for high blood pressure. It's low in sodium, low in cholesterol, low in saturated and total fats, and of course high in all the good things, fruits and vegetables and all of our low-fat dairy. And then when you switch to the Mediterranean diet, that's where you add more of the healthy fats, you get more into the legumes and the nuts. And so really it's just, again, trying to focus on less meat, more fruits and vegetables, and really focusing on the healthy nuts and fats. And you can look up online, there's like samples of all of these. They've been tested, tried, they are the standards when it comes to really what diets you have people follow. They are very useful, but again, they are very challenging if you are not making your own food, because pretty much everything on here to be able to follow these diets is making your own food, to be able to control the fat and the salt and everything. All right, next. So we got rid of the food guide pyramid, and then recently, I won't get into politics, they try to bring it back and say that it was this amazing thing. It is not. That's why we got rid of the food guide pyramid and went to the plate method. It makes more sense. We eat on a plate, we don't eat on a pyramid. So your plate should be half fruits and vegetables, the other half whole grains and protein. And then of course we want water as our beverage. We do not drink enough water in our society. And then of course we want the healthy oils, and you'll see the little guy running, stay active. We'll get a little bit more into that later. So there's a whole, you can go to I forget the website, but you can do My Plate, I think it's myplate.gov actually, and you can actually put in your information there, and it'll spit out what your calories should be and activities. So it is a great website. So that's myplate.gov. Here's the fish for the person that was asking. So the mercury levels in fish, you'll see the low one. Oh, I was wrong. So tilapia is in the low. And then the sea bass, as one of my husband's favorite, of course, is one of the higher ones. And salmon is on there, but that's why I was saying you have to be careful, because that one, I can't read it, what's it say? Farmed. So the farmed salmon typically is higher in mercury. But again, they change, so make sure you look them up. So think about fresh, what's natural, watch the packaged foods. We say meatless meals, so it used to be like, what was it, meatless Mondays? So that is a good rule of thumb, trying to get fish in at least once a week, if not 2 times a week. I incorporate fish into salads. Like at work, we have salmon and then we'll have the salad bar. And so I'll just throw the piece of salmon on my salad, and that's how I, get my fish in. And then of course, whenever you're doing grains, it's always better to do anything that's whole grain so that you're getting that extra fiber in, more bang for your buck. There are a lot of tortillas now out on the market that are like low carbs, high fiber. There's nothing wrong with them. I just say read the ingredients. The more ingredients are in it, the more garbage is in it. That's how I interpret things. Versus if it just has, 3 or 4 ingredients, then you're getting something that's a little more wholesome. All right, next. So this is just the American Heart Association's recommendations. Really, there is 30 minutes of exercise a day. Again, please don't, go out and start exercising. If you have any medical concerns, always check with your doctor first. But that will help you to improve your blood pressure, decrease cholesterol, improve flexibility, all those good things. So it's 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times per week. Again, our fish is 2 times a week. That's sodium. My magic number is 2,000, but it does depend on where your blood pressure is at. So that's always important to ask. Sugar, I don't know that this really is helpful, but it's more just saying, watch the extra sugar that you're taking in, because remember, sugar is linked to triglycerides, and triglycerides leads to cardiac disease. And then decreasing our saturated fat. So all those little numbers in there. So vegan, vegetarian, animal, protein confused. There's a lot of debate about, you should be vegan or vegetarian. There actually is, the studies show there's no benefit. Very small, I won't say no. There's very minimal benefit to going the extreme to vegan or vegetarian, as long as you're doing moderation, as long as you're looking at, the meats that you're eating or the different proteins that you're eating and keeping them leaner and more or less frequent, you can improve your health. So that's why that study we put there, occasional meat eater had 20% lower mortality rate, no meat and consuming fish was 34%, and then the lacto-ovo, so those are the ones that still do the eggs, that was 34% lower, and then the vegans was 26. So vegans being as restrictive as possible was actually not the biggest improvement in mortality. So put that into perspective. All right. Portions, the top left, that's a protein portion. It's about the palm of your hand or a deck of cards. That's 3 ounces. So when you go out to eat and you've got, a 10-ounce steak or whatever, that's well over the 3 ounces that we should be eating. The tennis ball is your fruit portion. Baseball is your vegetable portion. That dice is your fat. So that's that 1 tablespoon. The hockey puck, it's like a slice of bread. So that's the portion of your starch. So those are a little just helpful for visuals. And then there's my water. I put that in. I was like, water, water, water. So just, you want to build your meal around the fruits and vegetables first. Eat red meat and animal products less often. Choose your heart healthy fats, portion control, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now my oncology presentation. So the biggest issue with oncology is there's so much information that comes flooding at you because everybody wants to help, right? Like you get diagnosed with cancer and everybody feels bad and they want to be helpful, but then they're just spewing information at you. So sometimes it's very overwhelming. Social media influencers, you've got your family and friends. I have a personal story. When my dad was diagnosed with cancer, the neighbor told my dad, you need to stop eating dairy. My dad loved ice cream. His favorite thing in the whole world. On his deathbed, he was eating soy ice cream because the neighbor next door had told him that dairy was bad for him. And I wanted to punch the neighbor in the face. So that's why I say, get the information, get the facts. You got to filter everything that's coming at you because there's a lot that's going to come at you. So there are a lot of hot topics that come with, cancer and cancer diagnoses, but it's important to know the facts and not someone's opinion. So I just listed all the things that people ask me. So soy was a big one. When I was in my internship, I actually was part of the study that was going on for women with breast cancer, and that's when they were giving artificial soy supplements, and they were identifying that those women actually were having recurrence of breast cancer. So that's why they stopped that part of the study right away. So it was kind of exciting to be involved in something that was so powerful. So we'll get to my suggestions about soy. And then supplements, that's a whole beast of its own. And then we got into the whole intermittent fasting and keto and what's good, what's bad. So these are all the things that come at us. So we go back to the basics. So just some generalizations of protein. So you've got your animal versus your plant. It's great to have a mixture of both. So as far as the plant, those are things that people don't know as much about. So quinoa is a great one. It is considered a protein, even though it is a grain. Tofu is great if you know how to cook it. It has no flavor, so it takes on whatever flavor you put it with. Lentils and beans, those are great. You just have to, again, it's a lot of it is just knowing what to do with it. And so it's just important to make sure you're getting enough protein. That's why I put this on here, especially in recovery. We lose so much muscle mass because we are so weak and we can't get out and do some of the basics. So we want to build as much protein in our bodies to help preserve as much muscle as we can. So that's where a lot of times when you're in the trenches with your treatment and nothing tastes good and nothing sounds good, you've got to find ways to get the protein in. That's why a lot of the oral nutrition supplements, those are important because you can sip on them, right? They're a liquid. You can get some of those in and get that good protein in you without feeling like you're eating a whole meal. So again, those are all specific to treatment. Okay, so the soy part, basically the down and dirty on the soy was natural sources of soy. So the foods that have soy in them, there is no problem. So if you're eating edamame or you're eating the tofu, those are all fine. What we found was problematic was the supplements. So when you're taking just a specific soy supplement, that's where in the study that was causing those problems. So we say food source is best, steer clear of the soy supplements. So sugar, you hear a lot of the time, oh, sugar feeds my cancer. And so does it? Well, not directly. So the issue with sugar is, again, there's not a one size fits all for sugar. So of course, high fructose corn syrup, we know is not great. But honey, that's a naturally occurring sugar. There's nothing wrong with honey. It's just the amounts. So if you're, my motto is always everything in moderation. So I don't ever tell people never, but it has to be realistic and in moderation. So again, it's just the complex versus the refined. Supplements, I won't even speak to them in the sense that everybody is different. So it is great to have some sort of a multivitamin, especially if you're not a big fruits and vegetables eater, just to make sure that you're getting the foundation. The water soluble vitamins are safer. So that's C, I think it's C, E, and D. The ones you have to be more careful are the fat soluble vitamins. Those are the ones you can overdo. The water soluble you can pee out, and those are not problematic. So C, E, and D are okay. It's A, K, can't think off the top of my head, but anyways, fat soluble are not. You don't want to mess with those unless you know what you're doing. Flaxseed, that's one of the other fibers and goodness, but really we want to get as much of our vitamins from the food itself. This is a busy slide, but basically it goes into depth a little bit more about the omega-3 fatty acids we already covered and just talking about the carotenoids and the polyphenols. So these are just different, and it's in all the more color, the better. That's why the first slide was all those colorful fruits and vegetables. The more color you can get, the more benefits you'll have from these carotenoids and the polyphenols. So color is great. And then exercise again, that's that 30 minutes. For cancer, we try and say 6 days a week, but again, it depends on where you're at in your treatment. I mean, for you, it might just be, walking the halls of your house, and that's in itself a workout for you versus, putting your shoes on and going down the road for, 15 minutes and coming back. So it's whatever you can manage, but every little bit counts. Like I used to tell my mom, even if you're just like, she didn't have weights at the time. I was like, Mom, get some cans and just, raise the cans or tap your foot, but just keep yourself moving. And again, it's using those muscles so we don't lose them. Because if you don't use them, you lose them. That's the whole thing, like laying in a hospital bed, depending on your age. I don't know what the exact are, but I think it's like over 65, it takes only 2 days to lose like 80% of your muscle mass. That's why it's imperative that we get protein on board as fast as possible. That's why it's important to have physical therapy come and move the body parts. That's why in the ICU, even if people are on ventilators, we're moving their bodies. We're trying to use those muscles so they don't lose the muscle mass, because it takes a while to build it back up. Obviously, you want to be careful about your physical limitations. If you're unsteady, then no, you shouldn't be going out for a walk. That's where then you want to go to like a rehab or a gym or something where you can sit on a stationary bike and be safe and then get your, exercise in. So you want to be careful to avoid falls or anything that could further damage or prevent you from healing. Yes?
At what point is there too much protein?
It's pretty, I mean, the max that we say is 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. That's when you're going to put more strain on your kidneys, because your kidneys are the ones that process.
If you go above that.
Yes. Now everybody's different, but like when we have our kidney patients that are on dialysis, usually a recommendation is 1.2 to 1.4 with a max of 2 grams, because that's a lot. So like your bodybuilders, they're the ones that are getting up into those 2 plus, and really it's just doing a detriment to their kidneys, because their kidneys have to process it all. So I always say 2 grams is a safe, 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. Otherwise, I say stick around 80 grams of protein a day is kind of a catch-all, not specific, because obviously there's a lot of factors in that. So lifestyle risk factors associated as far as cancer, obviously obesity, sedentary lifestyles, our BMI. So obviously the more overweight we are, the more adverse factors we have. When we gain weight after diagnosis, there is a higher risk of reoccurrence. For breast cancer, 32% higher in women with diabetes. So the sugars, that's, obviously affects it. And then there have been some epidemiological studies that talk about alcohol intake. So that's why we don't recommend alcohol. Lifestyle goals, just again, these have been the same along, whether it's cardiac or oncology. We want to make sure we maintain a healthy weight. So that might be we need to gain weight versus losing weight. So it just obviously depends. Making sure we're getting fruits and vegetables, adequate protein, watching those bad fats, remember saturated and trans, those are the ones we don't want. Exercising as you are able to tolerate. And then always discuss supplements with your healthcare team, and then avoiding or limiting alcohol intake. So these are just some of the websites that I recommend. And that is all I've got.
I'm here on Zoom. I participated on Zoom, and I'm wondering what you think about nut milks, like almond milk, coconut milk, any of those.
So I personally use almond milk for a couple different reasons. It lasts longer than regular cow's milk. Soy is definitely okay. The coconut milk, I just heed warning and just check the saturated fat that's in it. That's what we were talking about, coconut kind of getting a bad rap. So not that I wouldn't ever say it, but just watch the saturated fat that it could be in those. But yes, those are definitely something that can be added to a healthy diet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That oat milk.
Same.
Okay.
Yeah, you just, that's like the whole, like, looking at the ingredients and seeing what's added to them. So, but yeah, there's some people that can't, you know, if they have a nut allergy or something, and so oats is a good alternative.
How about Himalayan salt instead of table salt?
I get that a lot. I love that question. And so I say, at the end of the day, salt is salt. So even though it might be a more pure form of salt, it's still gonna have the same effects on your blood pressure and everything else. So yes, taste wise and you know, how it comes about might be a little more appealing. But the way in which it affects our body is the same if it's Himalayan versus table salt. So it's kind of like if you compared table salt to like the raw, sugar, table sugar to like the raw sugar. Like raw sugar is less processed, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's still sugar. It's still gonna raise your blood sugars if you're a diabetic, or, you know, affect all of those things in your body because it's still sugar. But it is cleaner.
So a lot of, you mentioned the vegetables like lentils or like quinoa and all of that. Oftentimes it causes gas. So how do you supplement or reduce gas and still be healthy?
Yeah, and so that's where you almost have to build up, like I was saying with the chia seeds. I had a lot of GI upset in the beginning. I just was like, I've got to figure this out. And so some of it is tolerance. So once you introduce it, you know, that's what I'm saying, maybe just doing it once a week and letting your body, you know, kind of process it and figure it out, and then the next week having it again, and then you can build up to where then you can have it twice a week or maybe 3 times a week. I mean, there are some like Gas-X and things like that that can help your symptoms while you're trying to adjust, but typically your body will start to change because it's the gut flora, right, in our stomachs that helps us with all of that. So we got to get our gut right first, and that's a whole nother topic we won't get into, but you just have to kind of introduce it to your gut and let your gut get adjusted to it, and then you should be able to build up the tolerance.
So cholesterol wise, you know, they want to put you on the statins right away. What's so bad about those?
I don't know the specifics of the statins that I could answer that correctly for you, because I'm on the preventative side where I want to try and help, like I did with my brother-in-law for blood sugars and his blood pressure. We did diet first and he did it for almost 10 years. And then eventually he did have to go on medication. So I just delay it as much as possible because I'm pretty sure it's the side effects, but I don't want to speak to that specifically. But the side effects of statins, I believe, is what the long-term concern is.
Well, so just really quick, they put me on 5 milligrams. I was on it for 3 months. I retested and cholesterol went from 218 to 140.
Oh,
it like scared me how low it went. I thought that was really low. But
that was the norm. 140 is actually normal cholesterol.
You're kidding. Yeah, I just thought it was under 200.
Well, that's where they want it. So a goal is under 200, but 140 is like normal.
But then the weirdest thing happened. I'm all happy looking at my numbers. I'm like, wow, this stuff's amazing, right? And then the A1C, which I never even really knew what that was, went up. And it was like borderline.
Oh, for your blood sugar.
What the heck was that all about?
So you're fixing one thing and
and then I was like, you can't get anything for free. You know, it's like you pay the price. I couldn't believe it. And then I Googled it and it said it raises your, and I didn't,
blood sugar.
I'm not like a huge sugar eater or anything. And I was like, what?
And sometimes it doesn't have to do with that. It's a lot of that is insulin. It's what your body, if your body is not doing a great job of, maybe you're not producing as much insulin, or what you are producing isn't being utilized as well. And as we get older, that happens. And so that's where the exercise is important, because then it utilizes the sugar of the food that you eat right away. One of my dietitians, love her to death, her recommendation is always right after you eat, 10 to 15 minutes, just do something. She's like, Heidi, even if you march in your office or you take the stairs a few times, but that will immediately utilize the food that you just consumed, and it helps regulate your blood sugars.
Nice.
And that's because it's like, you can't tell people to go out for a 30-minute walk when that's not something that's reasonable, but 10 minutes is reasonable. And she's like, we were joking about it in the office, she's like doing push-ups against the wall, you know, she's like, just move, 10 minutes of whatever movement. Sorry, you had a question.
Vegetarian meat eating, so the slide said what, 20% less?
Reduce your risk of mortality.
20%, okay.
Yeah.
So, and the suggestion was maybe that's not a lot. It kind of sounds like a lot to me, or what's the thinking on that,
difference?
number one?
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
And then number two part is, once you've had cancer, and then continuing to eat meat or not, are there studies on that?
So the first one was comparing vegan to vegetarian and meat eating. That it was 20% versus
Vegan.
26%,
Okay.
and then a 34%.
Okay.
So it was the comparison between 20, 26, and 34. Like,
Yeah.
they're all good. Obviously, we want to reduce our mortality, but is 20 to 26 worth going the extreme
vegan.
Of vegan?
Okay.
Yeah. Because some people struggle with vegan, right? It's really hard to get protein.
It is, that's the big
It's
thing.
a big challenge, and especially talking about when you have GI issues. I mean, it's impossible to get enough protein without utilizing all those things that can upset your GI tract. Your second part of your question, I'm not sure. I would have to research to see what studies are out there that would say after cancer, is there a benefit to vegan, vegetarian, or meat eating? To me, I go back to my everything in moderation.
Yeah.
There's nothing that really is directly related of those that causes cancer.
And just finally closing it is the casein, or like say if you milk products and dairy. So if you went, is that in the same class as meat?
It's a source of protein.
That's a great source of protein. I'm wondering, does it create the same risk that the regular meat does?
No.
Not even close, probably.
No, I don't think so.
So say someone that's just trying to be cautious, they're vegetarians, but man, they're not getting enough protein.
Add the dairy.
Yeah, dairy's a fairly low risk compared to
What about non-fat? So like non-fat yogurt, plain non-fat yogurt, that's what I eat,
That's fine.
that's not a
low
problem.
fat, but it would still have the casein in it or whatever.
It'll still have the protein. It's just the fat part, so it doesn't affect the
Yeah.
protein part. It's just reducing the amount of fat that's in it. So when you're talking about yogurts, whole yogurt versus low fat or non-fat, the protein will always be the same. It's just removing the fat content. My only issue with those are you're usually adding artificial sweeteners to them. And so that's
Non-fat yogurt.
well, if it's not flavored, then
No
you're
flavor,
fine.
non-fat.
But if you're doing like fruit
Yeah,
ones,
no.
then they usually are adding artificial sweeteners. So sometimes I rather the whole fat to the non-fat, so I don't have the artificial whatever.
What are your thoughts about plant-based, like cheeses or plant-based labeling?
I have tried the non-fat cheeses, and in my opinion, they are disgusting. They don't melt.
So bad.
I just couldn't. Now some people love them. I'm not a fan. I like my dairy, so
Yeah.
I gotta figure it out.
Cashew is one of the better, isn't it?
Yeah,
me,
I've heard that is
cashews
one
are
that
better. Yeah.
has a little better flavoring to it. I haven't really dabbled a lot in them. Obviously plant-based is good, but it's what you tolerate.
Right.
Palate.
Yeah.
It's palatable. Yes.
We have two questions in our chat. One person asked, when the body cannot tell if it's full or hungry, then she counts every 4 to 6 hours to eat a meal, but then gets headaches late night around like 12, 1 a.m. And then when she eats, her sleep cycle is disrupted. So is there anything?
The 4 to 6 hours is right. I mean, we usually say 4 to 5 hours. You don't want to go more than 4 to 5 hours without eating something. Then that doesn't mean that it has to be a full meal. So it could just be, a yogurt or a whatever, a handful of nuts. It's interesting about the sleep cycle because most people, if they eat, that actually helps them sleep because then all the blood goes to the stomach and is digesting, and that's where it makes you sleepy because, you know, you're focusing on digestion. So that's a specific, you know, to her or him. So I don't have a great answer about that. I would say yes, definitely stick to trying to eat something if you don't have those hunger cues every 4 to 5 hours. Just get something in you so that you're keeping your nutritional status where it needs to be.
And then one other question a participant had about the portion slide here. If you could just re-explain.
Yeah. So protein we like to keep to 3 ounces. So that's the palm of your hands or like a deck of cards. It is not a lot. Fruits and vegetables, we always say a full cup. So that's the reference to the tennis ball, is about a cup. Now leafy vegetables, you want, you know, obviously more is better. And so that's where the vegetable, it's just a serving. So that's where the baseball is for the vegetable. And then fats, obviously the smallest amount. So that's why it's a tiny little dice. That's equivalent to 1 tablespoon. That's a serving of fat. And then starches is 1 ounce. So that's that hockey puck is supposed to represent 1 ounce. Typically it's 1 slice of bread. But now we know some slices of bread like this San Luis sourdough are nice and huge, or you get some of those tiny ones. So that's why we just say 1 ounce or 1 slice. So and usually starch is half a cup. So if you're doing like pasta or something, a serving is half a cup. So hopefully that answered the questions. If you go to that myplate.gov, it has a ton more information on portion sizes. Yeah.
Last question, I promise. Artificial sweeteners in terms of spiking blood sugar levels, for those of us that are in the camp that think sugar might contribute to cancer, at least once you've had it and might feed it. If I'm using artificial sweeteners, am I doing any better?
So some are worse than others. So the, oh goodness, what is it? It starts with an A. Aspartame is probably the worst one.
Okay, yeah, sounds right.
So I always tell people the studies support stevia.
Okay.
That tends to be the healthiest. Splenda was also in the okay category. So those are my 2 that I suggest to people. The problem with the Splenda that I see is it's like sugar on steroids. So it's like 10 times the sweetness. And so when you use it for prolonged periods of time, you can actually alter your sweet taste. So something that might have been sweet before, after you've had a lot of Splenda, does not taste sweet anymore. So that's why I just warn. And like when you get the like little packets, it's literally like 4 drops are the Splenda and the rest is fillers. Because you want to make sure you feel like you're adding something, but the actual content of the sweetener is not very much. So that's why I just warn people about Splenda, because it's so sweet.
But, and I guess it's a whole other conversation, which I understand, but again, obviously you don't want to eat too much sugar. You're saying that these stevia, they are a better substitute.
Better, yeah, so no pink, no blue. So it's the equal and the sweet and low. The sweet and low is the worst, and that's the, I want to say that has the aspartame in it.
Okay.
So those are the ones we don't recommend, the pink and the blue packets. That's why the green is the stevia and the yellow is the Splenda. Those are the 2 that are on the healthier side when you're looking at artificial sweeteners.
So pink and yellow, excuse me, yellow and green.
Yellow and green. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Sorry, I went over. I was like, oh, I won't be the full hour, and then here I am rattling on. Yes.
Do you recommend the no salt, or is that still salt?
I actually don't know what's in it. Usually we do like, the one that I like is the, why are names escaping me today? We use it in hospital all the time. I cannot think of the name of it right now. They have a gazillion different types of them, and they're basically salt-free seasonings. So they'll have like a fish one, and they have a chicken one. Why is the name escaping me? it's gonna walk as soon as I walk out to my car and be like, there it is. I can't pull it from my brain right now. But it is a salt-free herb seasoning. Mrs. Dash. Mrs. Dash. That's it. So Mrs. Dash, there was an original Mrs. Dash. Now they've come out with several different types. And so Mrs. Dash has probably, I don't know, 10 different versions. And all it is different blends of herbs and spices, but no salt. So that's why they'll have like Mrs. Dash fish or Mrs. whatever. But yeah, Mrs. Dash is a herb seasoning that's salt-free. But I would say look at the ingredients on that because I don't know that one specifically. What did you say? So I can look it
It's
up.
called no salt salt.
No salt, salt. I'll
It's
have
kind
to
of a
look it
white
up.
and blue label.
Okay, no salt, salt. I'll have to look up the ingredients because I haven't seen that one before.
Hydrogenated water.
No idea. Sounds like a marketing scheme to me, but I don't know. That's like the pH water, right? Like, do we need it? Maybe. Are we okay without it? Yeah. It's just a preference. Again, it's the gut. I mean, we want to make sure we're supporting our gut.
True.
Yeah.
Another question from our audience. Rice is a staple for this person's diet.
Yeah.
What rice is okay to incorporate in their diet?
I would always recommend brown rice because of the fiber content. So at least they're getting more fiber. The rest of the rices, as far as like jasmine versus white rice or parboiled, I mean, they're all still starches and they're all going to break down. So I would definitely recommend the brown rice first, or dabble in couscous and quinoa. Those are another, it's not rice. They would argue that it is definitely not rice. I will give you that. But it is a little on the healthier grain side than just white rice. Okay, well, thank you again
Thank
for
you
having
very
me.
much. Appreciate it.
Just a few quick announcements before we head out. There's surveys on your tables if you can fill those out. Anybody online, I will be sending that to you guys via email. We have a few events coming up, just so you guys keep in the back of your minds. June 29th, we have Beauty Buzz. It's open to cancer patients and survivors. It's a free pop-up salon day, basically, and we'll hopefully recruiting makeup, artists, hairstylists, barbers, to come do a free salon day for our participants. So that'll be June 29th. It is RSVP only, so you can go on our website and register for that. Again, it's June 29th. Our summertime yoga will be starting June 11th, all the way into August. So that'll be on Thursdays from 10 to 11, but just another wellness class starting up. We do have Wim Hof breathing and cold therapy. If you guys come to our Reiki class, Jeannie Rabin, she is our instructor for that class, and she'll be hosting a special workshop on how to unblock your energy using these methods. So that'll be June 17th. So that's the third Wednesday, and it'll be after the normal Reiki class. And lastly, we have our 4-week journaling support group that will be starting with Ann Gessert. That'll be starting June 3rd. It's open to anybody who wants to come and journal and be a part of a support group. And then you're more than welcome to share your thoughts and what you've journaled that day with your group. So that'll be very nice. And then lastly, we have our Hope Walk. If you haven't heard about it already, we send out emails like every week, and you'll probably see multiple. It's not too late to join. You can either register yourself, you can register with a team. Some people join with their support group, so they have a team like that. It'll be June 6th at California Lutheran University. It'll start at 8. We ask you if you are attending to please arrive early as parking can get a little hectic. And then you're more than welcome to check out our booths and our vendors that'll be there. And they'll have some goodies for you, some more information about any local resources. So this is posted everywhere all around, so you can come and take a look at it. Other than that, I just want to thank you all for coming. And then again, please fill out the survey. It really helps us understand what you guys want to see from us and what workshops we can provide for you in the future.
What was her name?
Heidi.
Oh, Heidi.
Yes.
Heidi.
Thank you,
What's your
Heidi,
last
for
name?
presenting.
Fernandez.
Just talked about that gut health. That would be great if she did a gut health.
Yeah. Great presenter.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what do you do at those programs?
Now I'm the director of the kitchen.
Oh.
So I've had that since the